Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us on the Religion Unplugged podcast, your one-stop shop for all the best religious news and culture. I'm your host, Joseph Holmes, Religion Unplugged film and culture critic, and with me today is Scott LeRette. He is a husband, father, and the author of the beloved memoir, The Unbreakable Boy, A Father's Fear, A Son's Courage, and A Story of Unconditional Love, and executive producer of the Lionsgate Studios film adaptation starring Zachary Levi. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
The pleasure is all mine. So, Scott, for those who don't know, tell us about yourself. What is the book about, and why were you inspired to write it in the first place?
Well, I think it just kind of took on a life of its own, and I ended up Teresa and I had a son, and we didn't even really know each other, and it became this situation, kind of a comedy of errors, and I was not at all on my faith journey. I'd taken an off ramp many years ago, and as so many people do at that age, and I was just off of it. And when I met this girl, it's like, do you like her or do you love her? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know if I like her. And but I also, at least I listened to my mother in that one regard growing up, and all I could think about was my mother, and I thought, I'm not going to be that guy. This child, whatever it may be, is going to have a father. So thank God Teresa and I ended up liking each other. But the story's a memoir. The Unbreakable Boy is a memoir, and the name just kind of came. It was kind of a play on words, just like my blog that I used to have called Authentistic. And it was just a play on words. And I just thought it was apropos. And but in the end, it's a love story. It's a story. It's a memoir, so it's my life story. And I think it's easy to confuse though, because Austin is such a gregarious, loud, in-your-face, colorful character, and he kind of dictates. He's this dynamo that everything kind of revolves around in the story, including the father, me, and so but but still, it's a memoir, so it's my life story.
Yeah, no, it's really quite amazing. So, I got to go to the premiere of the Unbreakable Boy in New York City, and it really is. The story is about obviously your life, your marriage, and the Austin being born, who's a boy who's both has autism and also has brittle bones disease, and there's all of these sort of challenges with raising him, but also how his positivity is able to help you and see things in your life that you hadn't seen before. And so, like, when was the moment that you decided, okay, this should become a book, or did somebody come to you with that?
Well, it wasn't so much somebody coming to me, but my brother Kevin. I have three brothers and two older, one younger. My oldest brother had called me after Austin had gotten a cast off his arm. We got home that same day and he broke his ankle. And we were talking and he just mentioned, yeah, because you have to understand, it's still to this day, the old saying about if you didn't have bad luck, you wouldn't have any luck. It's just the way we are. It's my family, and it's kind of a joke now. It's kind of a comedy. It's just the way things happen with my family. And at that point, I thought, I want to make a TV show, because as broken and flawed and messed up as we are, I'm like, look at, This Is Us and Wonder Years and Soul. So I was thinking all these different things that it was a
Yeah.
combination of. And I thought, holy cow, we've got this colorful, crazy character in Austin, and we've got this aloof ding dong Scott, and this steadfast mother, and then this little brother or older brother to the older brother Logan. And I thought, gosh, that'd be great. And that just kind of started that cascade.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Well, again, people it really, really resonated with it strongly. And we'll get into that a little bit in a moment. But you talked about how at the time that you started your marriage, you had kind of taken the off ramp on the faith journey.
Sure.
And what where were you? Were you kind of back on the faith journey when you started the book, or was that something that emerged as you were writing it out or after?
That had begun because at that point I was sober. And once I well, well you've seen the movie. um, Obviously that night I call it a bad night. That's kind of an understatement. It's the most shameful. It's still an experience when I really dig into that moment and talk about it. I will all the time. I'll talk about it every time, but it's painful because I'm so embarrassed and so ashamed of that and my behavior. Yeah, it was in process, and it wasn't this just as quickly as I dropped it like a hot potato when I left high school and went to college. That's not what happened, and I bet that doesn't happen that way. I mean, I guess some people could, and they just dive right in for new Christians and new followers, but for me it was different, and I think it correlated with my sobriety,
Mm.
and the two is a direct relation. I got sober that night. I went to a meeting the next day, and then here we are, almost 19 years later.
Wow.
No relapses, no nothing. But
Congratulations.
thank you, and I think my sobriety and my faith, it was a direct relationship. And the
Mm.
stronger my sobriety got, the stronger my faith got, the stronger my faith got, et cetera, et cetera. And, eh, but all along the way, though, having people in my life, not just family, not just my wife, telling me, let go, let God, because she would always say that. I'm like, I've heard it a few times, Teresa, but she would continue to say it. But then Peter, my partner, my business partner, he would also say that in a similar fashion with different words. And those two people had people may not know that, but Peter Facinelli, my movie producing partner, had such a profound impact on my life. And he knows that. He knows how I feel about that and how I feel about him. I love him like a brother. And it was such, and his faith journey too, and I learned so much about him. But I think that there's got to be a time when someone's example is what you follow and you recognize. And, I watch, it's something visual too. And being put into circumstances where she would take me to church and drag me to church and make me be there. So part of it was just being there, exposure, and it was just drip by drip. And hey, I'm broken today than I was 20 years ago or 10 years ago, but I know that I've got my faith. That's I've got what it takes to do battle though.
That's a good way to put it. No, that's it's really interesting because what really resonated, was so powerful to me in the film, and what's resonated with a lot of people is how you don't shy away from the brokenness and the way it's hard, to be, a good person even if you want to be, and have a good healthy kind of relationships even when you want to. And again, your book deals with, again, your the alcoholism addiction. It deals with all the difficulties of having a child that can break their bones, at the slightest thing, and all the doctor's bills and all the things like that, and difficulties in marriage and all of that stuff. And it's really, for people, it's really powerful because they get to see, oh, okay, this is something that I can go through too. And, faith is able to help you along on that journey. And as you're getting healthier, your horizontal relationships are being restored. Also, your vertical relationship is being restored, so to speak. But also, it is really vulnerable to be putting all of your all of your dirty laundry, so to speak, out there for a lot of different people. How was that to do, and have people speak into that and open to people's scrutiny?
Wonderful. That it it more affected Logan. You
Hmm.
see, Logan Logan grew up the way he is today
And so Logan
because
is your son, who
he's our
is
younger son.
younger son. Yeah.
Well, he's currently a 27-year-old Omaha police officer.
Wow.
But it Logan today is much more reserved and private. He grew up being the older brother to the older brother,
Right.
and so much of who he is as we all are. I'm a product of my parents,
Of
and
course.
I tend to think I'm happy with that. And I think Logan is as well. Sometimes I wonder, and I kid him about that, but I know that, when we chatted about that though, because so much energy and so much time is taken with Austin. And, we were just on a trip recently, all of us, and it's tough. And I think some people need to remember that Austin's autistic. And I'm not talking about my family, but over the years though, there can be friends and family members that don't, we always say get it, that don't get it. And that's tough to deal with when some people just don't get it and realize that, Austin's just not this quirky, funny kid. He has heart issues, he has bone issues, and he's autistic. And, they just expect, us to, they don't take, I'm rambling on here, but it's just such a challenge every day still.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's beautiful that you are putting out there a beautiful vision of living with challenges in that way. That's again one of the reasons why the book has been so inspirational for so many people. So before we wrap up, I guess what do you hope that people both from the book and the movie most get out of the story? If there's one thing you could have people take
Well,
away.
two things. First would be I hope that people can see the movie, read the book, whatever, and experience something within their own self that they take away, and they can relate that to their own situation, their own station in life. And maybe, pray about that, because it can maybe help them. And it is, because we're hearing it. And it's beautiful. It's actually, the responses have been just overwhelming and profound and beautiful. And one thing you'd mentioned something I wanted to just touch on real quick, and that is regarding, people see and people say, well, he's got this superpower. It's called autism. And I want people to understand too that, because we've gotten some pushback from some people that say, it's not a superpower. And all I would say is this: autism is a spectrum. Everybody experiences it differently. Austin's experiences is his experience. And that's all that needs to be said in that regard. Um, People are like, well, you act like you might want to fix him. I don't want to fix him. But when your son has a seizure and he's sobbing and he looks at you in the face and says, why did God do this to me? And I'd take a pill today if it'd fix me. Well, guess what? That's his experience. And he can say that if he wants. And I'm not going to judge my son for doing that.
Totally. That makes total sense. Well said. Well, thank you so much again for taking the time to talk to us today. This is
Yeah.
fantastic. And Unbreakable Boy, the movie, is on video on demand now. And of course, the book is available wherever books are sold. So check those both out. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us
Thank
today
you.
as well. Yeah. And this is the Religion Unplugged podcast, your one stop shop for all the best religious news and culture.